Hello everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. If you're looking for PTCG live codes, make sure you check out the Potown store. You can get a 5% discount on your orders using that code OmniPoke. For today's video, we have a number of online tournaments to look at. We're going to be taking a look at the top deck lists for the events that have occurred over the last week, and this is just 1 week away from the NAIC, so it should be a good indication of what's popular right now, as we'll be looking at the late night events that have just occurred in terms of how many copies of each deck have been turning up to these tournaments, as well as giving you some pointers for those last minute deck tweaks as we head into the largest tournament of the year. We start with an 11-0 Guardy list, and quite an interesting one at that, because it has sacrificed a number of the Psychic Energy to play the Bravery Charm Drifloon package with that Balloon Blast option, where you charm up and you can put enough damage counters on this boy to blast through a number of things. This list isn't playing the Champions Festival, so it can't do the full 330 with the heal tick, but it's still enough to get through 2 prize Pokemon with ease. And there's also Reversal Energy in a 2 count here, so even with the reduced count of Psychic Energy, you can still get there with your Brainwave Gardevoir. So quite a 1 prize heavy build, obviously not playing the Zacian V, instead just playing Drapion, which is a more sort of like focused tech card, I guess you could say, to help out against the Mew matchup. Playing that Penny, so is putting some respect on the potential to be hit with Mawile, which is kind of interesting, and maybe giving you a chance to tank with some of your stuff and pick up and put down, you know, sponging hits with Greninja, Drap, or Cress could be done against Lost Zone Box, and then you sort of buy a turn back against them. Still relevant in that regard, especially with Bravery Charms. That can certainly be the case. Like, charming up a Cress sounds really annoying for Lost Zone Box decks, so something to bear in mind as an interesting inclusion. Not just good for the Drifloon high damage output, also makes some of these Pokemon more dangerous, and even protects things like your Ralts in the early stages from Greninja pings as well, so that's also pretty relevant. So yeah, really interesting list, playing 4 stadiums as well, with 2 Collapse, 2 Artisan, 0 copies of Temple of Sinnoh, and 0 copies of Champs Fest as well, so that's kind of interesting when you are committing to a full 4 copies, not having the Champs that has such great synergy with the Drifloon. It's kind of surprising to me personally. And even though you're playing Palpad, not playing the Worker is a little bit interesting, choosing to have the physical copies of stadiums instead over that. So yeah, it's a take that hasn't been all that popular, but it did do well at the City Leagues in Japan, so the Drifloon combo is out there. And when you're stealing spaces from Psychic Energy, it's actually not really eating into your consistency too much, which is interesting to see. We have a very straightforward Arctina with 4 Judge, 4 Iono, 0 Research. Kind of interesting that this locks you into one of these supporters to always disrupt the opponent, which is sometimes a worry, right? Because if the opponent actually just has a brick, or off the first Judge they brick, and you need to continue to draw cards, and you don't have Bibarel Squirvet developed, you may just sort of bail them out. So I'm kind of still in the camp of wanting to have at least 1 Research, because it's a Starbirth option at the end of the day. But yeah, just lots of hand disruption, still good. Judge Path, still a hell of a combo. We have Single Strike doing well with the Reversal Lux package in here. Outside of that, looking pretty straightforward and streamlined with the nice Jet Energy inclusions. Just seeing 1 Gift Energy is surprising in a format where everyone wants to be aware of Iono, but I suppose timing this to perfection is kind of the thing you've got to be looking to do, and a number of your single strikers can't use it as easily as you would like to, so it is a little bit on the back burner. Then we have another Guardian top 4. Also playing, wow, okay, so the Drift and the Champs Fest. Wow, okay, so this is full Drifloon. 2 copies of the Looney Bin, and has the double Fest, double Bravery Charm, really committing to that combination. This one has that higher basic psychic count and just the 1 reversal energy, but the combination is still there. The Balloon Blast making its way in. Is this the new wave, new era of Guardy? We'll have to see. We have a Chen Pao Bax Caliber. This is a barrel-less build by the looks of things, so still has a fairly thick Bax Caliber, even with the Palkia line. Has the triple candy, quite high on the just regular support account. Looking pretty reasonable. We have an Arc Pika with Umbreon as a combination, giving you type coverage and a way to gust around certain things, bring up certain threats. Interesting to see a list play VMAXs so heavily alongside the barrel, because it can give the opponent an easier prize map, but not always the case, of course, and still has that textbook heavy judge path combination that seems to be doing well over and over again, no matter what. We have Guardy once again in this top 8, and this is more sort of traditional, I suppose, with the split of stadiums and the one Zashim V. Surprisingly low on that rare candy count, just playing the 2 copies, when we are leaning so much more heavily into the actual Guardy line being the attacking force in the deck. I really like seeing the extra copy, but here we go. Looks like it's choosing to play a second copy of Artisan over one of the levables even, which is really crazy. I feel like one of the benefits of Artisan is that it gets you an extra mana fee out, so not having, like, this still gets you the mana fee with Levelball, but it's just so much stronger because it gets curlier. Levelball is actually like one of the strongest decks in cards in Guardy, because getting to Refine is crucial. Another Bax in top 8, and this is a Bib build with no Palkia, so there's going to be lists with no Bib, there's going to be lists with no Palk, and there's going to be lists playing both Bib and Palk, so it's still way up in the air which is which and how we should be playing this archetype. This is a Skaters Park list, has double Luminion and Forest Sealstone as a combination in here. It's playing Boss Cancelling as a way to get around mana fee. Yeah, I mean, so many different variations right now going on with Chien-Pao. We'll see how the others are faring. We have the Late Night Special 5 to go next, and the winning list was Giratina Lost Box. Looking like a really solid 60 from the outsets. No crazy cards. That 4 versus 3 count of Tina is something I'll always debate, whether it is in fact better than that Nest Ball or not. Always a weird one for me to rationalise. Am I just completely on my own with that one? I don't know. Answers on a postcard. We have Lugia in second place. Colourless Lugia with double reversal energy to give yourself a higher chance of using that Luxray. Has double Avery in here. Wow. So really trying to just deny the setup of a number of archetypes, I suppose. Just really hinder the Chien-Pao and hinder the Guardy players, stopping them going wide. Double Avery, double Collapse. That's a lot of removal, right? Absolutely insane. Has 1 copy of Judge in here as well. Actually, a kind of wild supporter lineup. 2 Avery, 2. Insane. We've got a Chien-Pao in top 4. This one is playing the full suites, the thin line of the backs, which a lot of people go for. This is the Pokestop Switcher build. This is kind of my preference right now. I definitely like stop switchers. I'm sold by them. I'm sold. We have another Lugia. This is still colourless, but not even playing the weird ear. Just triple Lax, double Drap as a combination. Drap, obviously a good attacker against Guardy as well as Mew, because you can just rev him up against Guardy when need be for higher damage output. This one's not playing Luxray either, so not having that comeback type coverage for the mirror match doesn't always come off, in fairness. So there is that. It's playing the A-Spec Great Ball. Bless! You love to see it. Something's catching on. That's genius. Okay. We have the Darkrai in top 8, something you don't see every day, for sure. It's not even playing Squawk. Wow. I would have thought that one of the bigger buffs for a deck like this would have been Squawkabilly, because you're already playing VIP Pass, and Squawk can just help you bin stuff. I would have thought that would be like a dream combo card for this deck. You're already throwing so many multi-prizes into play. Surprising not to see that in the deck list, to be honest, because it feels like made for Darkrai. It's what you're trying to do, right? Cycle early, throw Dark Energy into the bin, and then rev them all back with Patches and Star Abyss. Okay, who needs it? We got a Chien-Pao with... Okay, wow. So it's playing no Palkia, and it's just playing Kricketune V over the potential Bib Barrel. So Kricketune obviously is shut down by Path, but it can be a pivot that you go into, especially with the Skaters Park. You can just super cold and energy to Cricketune, and then it becomes your pivot. And you also give yourself double Forest Seal Stone, which gives you good odds of VIP early game. Actually, really cool idea. Yeah, really cool idea. Double Fish to give yourself good Irida odds. Only 3 Ultra. Man, you gotta play 4 Ultra if you're double fishing it, right? Especially with the Forest Seal Stone. Luminion is such a cracked card to forest into. So you can even jump back into the deck. Really, like, light on attackers, right? Just Greninja, just Chien-Pao. Hey, that's a really cool thing. I want to try that out. Oh, it's MP. I really like seeing MP. MP plays a lot of these tournaments, and he always brings really cool concepts to the table, and always does well, because he's just a very good player. We have Single Strike, Lugia. This is... Wow, it's basically playing no new cards. Yeah, it plays no new cards. It's old Lugia. It's just doing the business. Why play Iono? You know? That's crazy. And then we have a Fusion Mew. Mew's in that really weird place because we don't actually know how much Spiritomb's actually going to show up at this tournament because PTCG Live doesn't work. So whenever you see Mew, especially we haven't seen DTE Mew yet, but if ever you see that in the standings, it's like, sure, you can do well with it when Spiritomb is banned, but would you actually have the stones to play it at a tournament when Spiritomb could be that tech card? There's actually a really interesting case study of like, will people over or undervalue Spiritomb because they've not been able to test with it as much on PTCG Live? I know Live isn't everyone's like primary testing source, I suppose, and can't be for NAIC because everything doesn't work. But it's a like interesting case study to think about how you think it will change like the people playing Mew versus the people teching Spiritomb, because we can't really easily evaluate it so much, or it's going to be like within testing circles to see how good that card's going to be. I know this came 9th, but I do just want to check in on Tinglu because we don't get to see it every day. Alright, it's looking pretty similar to the ones we've seen in the past. Nothing too kooky. This also is this must have been before the bugs, right? Before it got changed, before it got banned. Next up we have the Late Night Special 6, and it was actually a Mew winning. So I guess this was when people could play the Spiritomb. This is that DTE build that has the reversal Lux combo and has the Drapion. This has been doing the rounds in online tournaments and still doing well, which is cool to see. No VIP pass once again. Trust me, I've played a lot of Fusion Mew this week. And yeah, I'm really at a loss with like just having so many opening hands where it's live or die by a cram flip. I'm thinking at this point I just want to cut them and just play raw ball search like this. Honestly, I'm getting close. We have Urshi Rapid Strike box in second place. Does it have many new toys? It has Ionos. Still playing the Drapion over Tomb. That may be because of bug or not. I'm not really sure on the timeline of this one. Otherwise, it's more of the same. Choosing not to play Squawk, still keeping Luminion. It's weird, right? Because the upside of Squawk is that you can use it turn 1 going first. But if you have a VIP pass anyway, would you really go Squawk? Because, like, just to give yourself a deeper dig versus just guaranteeing the 2 outs you could get. It's a weird one, right? We then have a Turbo Lost box with double Artisan coming in. Really low on those energy counts. And really high on the support counts, actually. Interesting. It seems like more and more people have gone away from the high supporter towards a Pokestop build, but that's a completely different take on it. We have a fusion build of Mew, looking very solid. Yep, no spice, just the good stuff, basically. Looking good. Another Rapid Strike box doing well. Okay, so this one is playing the Squawk, interesting. So we've had a bit of both. So I'm playing slightly more streamlined support account with the gears in here as well. Yeah, looking really solid. I don't know if the Squawk is right or not, to be honest. I feel like it just could be a good card that helps the deck out a little bit. We have a Kyogre Lost Zone box with the multi-prizes in there. Pretty straightforward, just playing Chorus as supporters. Let Pokestop do the rest. Have a Chen Pao in top 8. Always like to see the Chen Paos because there's so much variation. The fact that they keep doing well with so much variation is a good sign for the deck, but also like kind of scary that no one's landing on the same thing. This is another Pokestop switcher build. I think we've seen an exact list like this before. And then we have an Arctina in top 8 as well, playing the Flying Peak package to help out against Chen Pao and to help out against a few other archetypes as well. I think I'd always try and get this out against Single Strike Lugia, but I think I never get it out against Colorless unless I can like play from behind for a few turns. And then when I'm enabling their Luxray, I would switch out of it and go to a different attack, I suppose, and try and combine it with like Judge plays. Because you have to be aware that Luxray can be in Lugia now, and that would be scary. But just because Chen Pao is so bad without this card, I'm kind of happy to see the Flying Peak. Right, so that's the Late Night Special 6. I'll save the metagame stuff till the last 2 tournaments because they're the biggest. We have... Next up, the Lucky Squad Grinder number 9. We have Lugia, the Colorless build with all the treats. We've got the Lux Reversal and the Luminous Zard combo. Outside of that, it's ticking all the boxes. It's playing the Bravery Charms as well. I'm still unsure about these Bravery Charms. I feel like there's too much going on in the deck if you start adding these in. But I don't know, there are upsides to gaining hit points, of course. It is solid. Have a Lost Zone Box Turbo build. Seems like a lot of people are playing the stops these days. I feel like they're really strong at the moment. Triple Forest Seal Stone. People taking notes from the Mew lists. We have a Tina as well in top 4. Triple Path in the build, the double Rox Iono. I am kind of leaning more and more towards 2 Roxanne in the deck. It seems like so critical, especially when you Abyss Seek very often with a list. You're baiting out Roxanne so early with like letting your first V go down, then going into a Cram, a Greninja, or a Sableye, then suddenly you're in control like for hand disruption for the whole remainder of the game so quickly. I'm definitely a believer in that. We've got a DTE base build of Mew, none of the spicy attackers, just good old fashioned hand disruption base build. With some extra ball search in here, the double feather and the Hisuian, not having any single prizer like Oricorio. Definitely a debate around Oricorio, right? Because there are like belts in and potentially cleansing gloves in regular Tina and Arc Tina and Lost Tina. Not always though, maybe it's just me. We have another Kyogre Lost Zone box. I'm only really going to... We have so many to talk about. I'm only going to talk about sort of the highlights if there's anything super crazy in these lists. Like, this is a really wacky supporter lineup, right? We've got the Avery. We've got Double Boss and Serena. Silene in here. Fan of Waves. Definitely a few tricks up the sleeve of this list. Fan of Waves being a way to continue to disrupt Lugia players, which is solid. Avery definitely good disruption in Mirror and against Guardy. Yeah, still highest on the judge count, but still has the Roxanne and Iono combo, so a lot of hand disruption at its disposal. Yep, looking good. Got a Guardian top 8. This is, once again, playing the Drifloon combo. It's starting to make it. It's starting to come to life. The Drifloon Festival Bravery Charm. It's taken a while. People have just been using other lists, but are people jumping ship towards Drifloon? Was it real all along? Don't play 3 Curlier ever. God. That terrifies me. My goodness. Other than that, looking pretty okay. Then we have a Palkia. What is this? Oh, Palk Pow without the Baxcalibur. I mean, Bibarel Palk was like kind of a deck before, I suppose, so there's no reason to think that Chen Pao couldn't just be this card that you can bucket to, and then you have Melanie combos for Starmie and Suicune as well as Palkia. And then sometimes with the ramp of Star Portal and enough Melanies like around your board, there'll be a point where Hailblade does good damage. You have Raihan attached for Hailblade plays as well. Definitely an interesting concept. Really thick on the Chen Pao, so maybe it's just simply like this is just the best lead in the deck that helps unlock the Palk early game engine. We've seen like Palk water boxes, actually at last year's Worlds, right? With the barrel to fall back on. So people are still experimenting with that. Let's get into the Card Cavern top 8. Another Guardy doing well. I always breathe a sigh. Wait. Calamitous Wasteland. Non-basic. Sorry. The retreat cost of basic non-fighting Pokemon in play have one more retreat. So it's only denial against basics that aren't fighting. I mean, most basics aren't fighting type in the format right now, so you're just trying to increase the retreat cost of basic Pokemon. Trying to block Comfey is the first thing I'm thinking of. Is there anything else where it's like a huge annoyance to do this? I guess you can use Wasteland and Cress as like a mini combo where you bring something up and then hit something in the back and make it hard for them to move. Yeah, I did not have that on my list of like Guardy stadiums. That's like so low on my list of priorities of Guardy stadiums. My goodness. Has the Mirage Step, which you don't always see. Yeah, what a crazy extra stadium choice. Pretty wild. Have an Arctina in second place. A straightforward Arctina. No thrills. Once again, playing just the Disruption supporters. No Chorus, no Research. Has to hand Disrupt if it wants to draw cards. We have some Arcduras. Now, Arcdura's really weird, because I keep trying to slag off this deck and say that it's really bad. And it hasn't had many results at all, but there have been a few on today's video. Like from now and later on as well. And I feel like the deck should crumble because it doesn't have any sort of engine whatsoever. So it should crumble to Iona Disruption. But if in this case you're shoving in enough like checkmate style cards where you have the Dura being a ton of denial, the Vulpix being a ton of denial, and the Pika being a ton of denial, maybe you have enough just say no cards that you end up winning enough games that it's still a good deck. I don't know. I still feel like there's going to be enough Single Strike Lugia that this has a terrible time into it. That plays the Urshi. I suppose that the Urshi, though, is weird because they have to keep it for Pika as well as Dura, so it has to stick around for a long time and chain a few urns. Maybe that's part of the reason why. It's so weird. Yeah. I don't know. I want an engine in any deck that I'm playing in an Iona world, but here we are. We have also in top 4 another Arcdura, which is more similar to the EUIC list with the double Drap in here, the Heavy Loss City. Still with just supporters to draw. But yeah, this is very similar to the EUIC list. We then have a Sparkle Mew. Doing pretty well. Has the Avery in here as well. No rocks, just playing Judge Iono. Has the Ice Cue, which is super popular now. Then we see a Turbo Lost Box. I think Turbo Lost Box is going to be the most popular variant going into NAIC personally, because Kyogre is just so hard to play. We then have a Colourless build of Lugia. Man, Colourless is still everywhere. I thought it was going to be like a week 1 syndrome where people are just trying out the new shiny toy. But people love Colourless Lugia. People really like it. Still getting results all over the shop. Choosing to play the Bravery Charms again. This is the one card that I'm like just not playing in my Lugia right now, and I don't see like tremendous value from the card ever. But sometimes you live because of it, so I suppose that's good. And then another one, or was this the same one? Looks very similar anyway. This one's not playing the Vacuum, it's playing a Pump instead. But yeah, looking pretty good. Colourless Lugia is still doing bits for sure. Right, we're getting there. We'll get to the late night bonus event, where it was a Lost Box coming out on top. This is just a pure single prize Kyogre build of Lost Box. Looking very clean, looking very solid. It's the A-Spec level ball for the double Manaphy. Really thick on the Pokemon, even with double Rod, really thick on the the triple Sable and the double Manaphy. We have some Guardy doing well. This is really straightforward Guardy. And there's nothing wrong with that. When I'm calling it straightforward, it means it's got no fluff, it's got no clutter. Also in top 4, we see, man, the Drifloon showing up all over the place. Balloon believers out there, for sure. Double Artisan in here as well. Was that the first one I looked at, or the second one? I've just clicked on the same list. Okay. Top 4 with a turbo approach. We haven't seen many multi-stone builds. It looks like people are just landing on high Forest Seal Stone, just get me to 7 builds. Trekking Shoes are sneaking their way into the list more and more and more, alongside an amount of Pokestop. More Guardy doing well, so Guardy's really been doing well in this top 8. Again, not many thrills in this one. Does have the Forest Seal Stone and a couple V. The Luminion does add to the overall support count. This one's not playing Worker Pad, just playing 3 Stadium instead. Got a Meloetta Mew. This looks like a, again, that standard version that we've seen from Japan already. And then a couple Arctinas. This one's playing some interesting cards. It's playing the Squawk and the Drap, as well as a Temple of Sinnoh. Wow. Temple of Sinnoh in Arc to try and give yourself that hand assault. Wait, it plays no Judge. The deck is Judge the deck, and it doesn't even play Judge. It's playing Chorus instead. That's so wild. Wow. No Judge. It's a whole new world we're living in. Just Judge, forehead. And we're back. Okay. This is playing Rod for some energy reload. Potential Echoing Horn denial plays. Interesting. Right, on to the 2 larger scale tournaments then, the Late Night 109 and 110. Let's start by looking at the metagame for these 2 tournaments. So Lost Zone Box was most popular, followed closely behind by Guardy. Surprisingly, Tina in at 3rd most popular, then Chien-Pao, Fusion Mew, which had a really high overall win rate as well. Then Arctina. Lugia quite low on popularity. I thought Lugia would be way more popular than this. Even if you combine the 2, that it's only just above Mew and below Chien-Pao. A good amount of DTE Mew, which can only be... It doesn't make sense to play lots of DTE Mew right now, because you don't learn anything, because Spiritomb is not a card in the game. It's like, sure, you want to do well at the late night, but is there any real point? Because it doesn't actually help your real life... Like, it doesn't help testing at all. It's such a weird logic to me. And then we're really getting into the stuff. And just for a quick reference, the next late night was a slight flip-flop where Guardy's a little bit more popular than Lost Box. So those seem to be way out in front, where they could reach maybe 20% of day 1 meta share for NAIC. By the looks of things, Chien-Pao 3rd most with an abysmal win rate. Look at that. That's really low. That's like clown deck win rate. Like United Wings had a higher win rate than Chien-Pao. You know, that's really bad. Fusion Mew, Lost Tina, a little bit more Arctina this time around as well. A 50-50 split between the Lugias. Seems about right. A little bit more Arctura at this one. There's a Tinkerton, you'll love to see it. Okay, right. Let's have a look at what did well then with those in mind. It was a Guardy winning the first late nights. And it's a very straightforward looking build. I once again think this is just going to be the grab for the majority of players. Maybe not the curlier split, but... And yeah, maybe Sinnoh is played because you can in real life. But actually, an Arctura made 2nd place. This is the EIC combination of cards, right? Still finding a way. It has Squawk now to give you some early game dig. Wow, the EIC list still being powerful. I over-respected Iono's ability of beating that deck, I suppose, because it's a thing. We then have Guardy. Again, nothing too much to write home about with this one. Looking solid though. Have a Lugia in top 4. This is a colourless build. Does the staying power of an Arcdura put you off colourless Lugia? Starting to put me off a little bit, you know? I'm someone that really wants to play colourless Lugia at Worlds. I'm going to be completely honest about that right now. It's like my front runner currently, but Dura is starting to scare me. We have an interesting turbo build that plays the Luxray as a Mirage Gate combo rather than playing a Raikou. Really interesting choice. With the double Raihan and double Forest, you do have a decent amount of search, I suppose, to hit the Luxray, and then you gate to it. It's got one colorless in its attack. One lightning in its attack cost. So playing the 2 count is still fine, I think. Of lightning energy. Got a fusion Mew in top 8. More of the same story with this one. The more I've played of fusion Mew, the more I want to play 4 Nest Ball. Just a small note there. You might be seeing that in a video soon. We've got another colorless Lugia. So even though colourless and single strike were played at almost the same rates, it was 2 colours that made it into top 8 and no single strike builds. But then Adura made second, so... And yeah, then we have another turbo build. It seems like turbo has the popularity behind it compared to Kyogre, and that makes sense. I think that's true for like the general field as well. Let's have a look at this final tournament then. Oh wow, a lot of Lost Box in this one. We've got a Lost Box finals. Hedrick, once again, the madman. He is pretty good at this game, huh? Playing that Kyogre combo build. So he has the go fast option with the 2 Vac, 2 Sealstone. And playing just the stops and Colress. Yeah, he's getting really adept with this deck. Really, really impressive results time and time again with that one. Then we have a similar list. This one's playing Drap over Kyogre, but more of the same. In top 4, it was a DTE base build of Mew. I just don't understand why you would, like, do you really just, I guess it's the same thing I'm thinking about of, like, if you're playing Lugia colourless, you're accepting losses if your opponent wishes to tech for you, as in, like, putting Duraludon into Mirror/Arc. And then DTE Mew isn't really the same thing, but it's more of, like, the 2019 Blounds conundrum of, like, will people actually play the Finny tech? And then now is the question of, will people actually play the Spiritomb tech? But like obviously they can't on live, but I'm saying if you're willing to take this to a late night, either you spend like so much testing not caring about that you don't care about like the rounds you play on this tournament, or like you're just expecting no one to play Spiritomb because they haven't been allowed to test it. It's such a weird logic. I feel like you just gain nothing by playing DT at this tournament. Like, the finite time you have should be spent all testing decks that you actually consider for NAIC, which DT Mew, in a field where you can't test against Spiritomb at all, it just makes no sense to try it. We have a really interesting Guardy that's playing double Zacian and double Stones. Still playing Miriam over Rod as well. Pretty wild. Is playing 3 Side Shot Rolts, not even Teleportation Burst. What is going on? 1 Research, 1 Resolve, 1 Serena. It's like an old school supporter lineup. He's playing a couple new treats though. Got the Artisan and the Reversal, so that's pretty wild. Another Lost Zone box. The Turbo approach with Artisans. We have an Arc Vulpix. Okay. So take out the Dura and just play Vulp. Okay. Do you think that people are going to start respecting Vulpix enough to actually tech for it in Guardy? Is that why we're seeing Drifloon? Is Drifloon the respect to Vulpix that we need to be doing? Is it Bravery Balloon to beat Vulpix at NAIC? Lake Acuity's in here. My goodness. My goodness, turn every energy into a V-Guard, why not? I mean, it definitely helps Arc out against Lugia to push Arc out of range from turn 1 Lugia bopping. Kind of huge. We then have Fusion build with Mew, with double Avery again. Okay, really spicy, these Averys. I suppose if you're expecting Mirror and Guardy, Avery's strong. And then we have a Giratina as well to round out the last top 8. So overall, we looked at a lot of Lost Box, a lot of Guardy, some rise of like Arc Binder Drop Jank decks, but still a good, like, I think a higher amount of Arctina Bibs was still in the top 8s that we talked about today from just eyeballing it. As we edge closer to NAIC, we actually looked at a lot of Chempao at the start of the week, but then sort of less as we got to the bigger ones, I suppose, or the most recent ones. Yeah, I mean, you have to think that Guardian Lost Box will take up the most meta share day 1. Chempao's kind of that unknown where people are willing to test it a lot, so it's inflating its play rates, but its win rate is low. Mew is also like a coin flip of how popular you think it'll actually be. But I would expect a huge amount more of Fusion than DTE. Giratina hasn't done all that well, even though it's had high representation in all these tournaments. So maybe it is still getting farmed by the West, who love playing Lost Zone Box more than Lost Zone Tina. Whereas over in Japan and Taiwan, it seems like there's a higher play rate of Giratina in general that sort of inflates its stats. Whereas we're happier playing lower to the ground, like Dragonite plus whatever else combinations. Yeah, that's really my consciousness. The overall win rate of Arcta is really low as well in this tournament. So its overall win rate is pants. It's just some people spike their way through because they have the right techs or hit the right matchups, I suppose. Yeah, I still just think it can't be a really high tier deck. It really can't be. Anyway, that's my discussion. There is going to be more in the build up to NAIC because I think there's a special event going on this weekend as well. So we'll get even more insight before the tournament. But hopefully this was helpful. A lot of discussion today. And I'll see you tomorrow for another video. Cheers.